I'm coming home, coming home. Tell the world I'm coming. And the blood will dry underneath my nails, and the wind will rise to fill my sails. So you can't doubt and you can't hate, but I know no matter what it takes, I'm coming home, I'm coming home. Tell the world I'm coming home. Let the rain wash away all the pain of yesterday. I know my kingdom awaits, and they're fighting for my sake. I'm coming home, coming home. Tell the world I'm coming.
So far away from where I belong, but it's always darkest before the dawn. And you can't die, and you can't hate, but I know no matter what it takes, I'm coming home, I'm coming home. Tell the world I'm coming home. Let the rain wash away all the pain of yesterday. I know my kingdom awaits. They are fighting for my sake. I'm coming home, coming home. Tell the world I'm coming. I'm coming home, coming home. Tell the world I'm coming home. Let the rain wash away all the pain of yesterday. I know my kingdom awaits, and they're fighting for my sake.
I'm coming home, I'm coming home. Tell the world I'm coming home.
Sehr geehrtes Publikum, dear audience, thank you very much for attending this evening. First of all, I would like to thank everyone here in Frankfurt who made this evening possible. I would like to thank Simone and Ralf Hoffmann from the Bene Brit Lodge, Mark Grünbaum and Mickey Fuhrmann from the Jewish community, Sascha Stavsky from Honestly Concerned, and Hagit Halaf and Anna Kupperschmidt, who are providing the music today. My very special thanks go to Kanton Amnon Selig from Mannheim. Without whose initiative, this evening would not have come out. The world has been a different place since the massacre on October 7. On that day, Hamas attacked southern Israel, murdering, raping, and kidnapping Israeli citizens. Around 100 people, including children, are still in the hands of Hamas. Their pictures can be found on their chairs. Would you please hold them up? Stand up, please. Everyone stand up. Thank you. Thank you very much. With every day that the war continues, the chances of them returning alive to their families dwindle. With every day that this war lasts, Jews all over the world are affected by the return of anti-Semitism. Things that we have long since been overcome seem to be sayable again, right down to the strategy of denying the facts. It was Hamas that attacked Israel, turning and murdering above all those who stood up for peace in the region. After the Shoah, many survivors fell into silence in order to protect themselves and their children. It takes a lot of courage to name the unspeakable and to remain human despite all the suffering and grief. And I would like to thank Sharone Lifshitz from the bottom of my heart for having this courage and for sharing today how her world has changed since October 7th. Sharone Lifshitz is an internationally recognized artist and peace movement activist in Israel. On October 7, Hamas kidnapped her mother together with her father in the Gaza Strip. Her mother has already been released, but her father is still being held hostage by Hamas in Gaza. Briefly about the course of the evening, after a short musical intermezzo, I would like to hand over to the floor to Uwe Becker, Antisemitismus Commissioner for the State of Hessen, whom I would like also a warmly welcome. Cantor Amnon Selig will introduce Sharone Lifshitz to you. And following, last but not least, following Sharon's presentation, you will have the opportunity to ask a question, and Sasha Stavsky will translate them into English if you prefer to say them in German. Thank you.
Dear Mrs. Lifshitz, ladies and gentlemen, let me first speak out what should be the central message in these hours. Bring them home now. מחזירים אותם הביתה עכשיו. עכשיו, עכשיו. Meine Damen, meine Herren, ladies and gentlemen, when we come together here in this evening, we see the faces of people, not histories. We see many single persons who are still held hostage for so many days, for so many weeks, for so many months. This is the darkest chapter of Jewish life, the darkest chapter of our societies around the world for so many years. When we see what was happening on the 7th of October last year, we could not imagine that families would be slaughtered, babies burned alive, women raped brutally, families erased by the terror organization Hamas that did exactly that what they already said that they would like to do and what they were writing down in their charter already in 1988. And too many people since then were relativating, were interpreting, were defining what probably Hamas could have meant. We all saw, the whole world could have seen what Hamas wanted and what this terror organization did. And there's nothing to relativize, nothing to put into relation to whatsoever. These dark hours of the 7th of October, where the toxic spirit of genocide went through so many kibbutzim in the south of Israel, Be'eri, Nachal Oz, Kfar Aza. It is indescribable. But we also have seen that since October the 8th, the whole world, or at least the biggest part of the world, has already started to relativize, to deny what has happened. The denial of the mass murder of October the 7th is a crime against humanity, is a crime for itself. And when we punish those who deny the crimes of the Shoah here in Germany, we should also be strict against those who deny the crimes of October the 7th. Because it's the same detour. It's the same way that people use to spread their hatred against Jews. It's the same way that they use to spread their hatred against the state of Israel and the Israeli people. And it's not about politics of a single government. It's not the question about single political issues that everyone could debate every day. But the 7th of October has its own singularity. And there is no but. And there should not be any but when we look upon the pain and sorrow that so many people, so many families went through and still are going through. For Israel and its people, the 7th of October has not yet ended. The trauma goes on. And Israel, with all the difficult pictures that we see from Gaza, has every right to defend itself and has the necessity to continue the path to destroy Hamas finally and totally. With respect, yes, also to victims in Gaza, and every child counts. Every single child counts. But we should not forget who started this terrible massacre and who is now in charge of defending its people, and to make clear that October the 7th must never repeat. And no government in the world, no people in the world could and would accept the risk of such a single day being repeated and repeated and repeated. Israel has a right to find back to a life where people could live safely, not only in the south of Israel, but in the whole country. And for that reason, we have also to stand clear in solidarity with the state of Israel. We did it here in Frankfurt on the 7th of October in the evening. We did it after and after. And things, yes, have become harder to argue. But that's also why we are here tonight. Not about political debates, but to stand in solidarity with those 100 and more hostages still being held in Gaza. Every day more that they are being held in Gaza is a day of crime, is what the United Nations should argue against. There is one single position. If Hamas would end today, if Hamas would release the hostages, all the fighting could be over. And the world should put pressure on Hamas to do so, and not single pressure on Israel to go into a ceasefire. There have been so many ceasefires, and Hamas has always broken those ceasefires in the worst way on October the 7th. So tonight we show solidarity. We are thankful, Mrs. Lifshitz, that you have made your way here. We have met already in Wiesbaden at the State Chancellery, and it was impressive and intensive to speak with you about your family. We will hear it, and I will stop now because it's the evening where you can tell the story of your parents that stand for all those who are still being held there. Bring them home now. מחזירים אותם הביתה עכשיו, עכשיו, עכשיו. Thank you very much for your attention.
Alleluia. not make this long. But it's actually, I'm glad that the music plays a strong part of this evening, because it's actually kind of through music that Sharone came here. When I was 16, 17 years old, I started singing in the youth kibbutz choir in Israel. There were children from kibbutzim from all over Israel, and I was from kibbutz Tel Aviv, but the other ones were from kibbutzim, and where I met a lot of our singer friends were from the kibbutzim in Oktober, where Hamas attacked on the 7th of October. And so when I got the idea to find someone from Israel to come and speak in front of a German audience, I spoke to Tala Zilberman, who was a very good friend of mine, who sang with me in the choir and who comes from kibbutz Nir Oz. And I don't know if you know, but about a third of the hostages are from Nir Oz, which is very much, we're very close to Gaza. And so she connected me with the Bring Them Home Now, with Mutter Yochevet, the hostages forum, and with Yochevet and with Sharone. Sharone was born in 1971 in kibbutz Nir Oz. Her parents, Yochevet and Oded, were from the founders of the kibbutz. When she was 20 years old, she moved to London. She studied architecture and became a very well-known artist and art and film teacher in London and in New York. She has also worked in Germany. If any one of you have visited the Munich Jewish Museum in the last 20 years, it was eingeweiht 2006, wissen Sie? With the big cube with a sentence all over that, she made that. So and Sharone has been living in London for the last, I think, 30-something years, and we are very, very honored and thankful that she took the time to come here and to speak to us. Toda rabba.
Good evening. Thank you everyone who came here today. It's quite overwhelming. It's been a long day and a long, almost 6 months. Some of you heard me earlier today or yesterday. I'm going to repeat some things. There's a few things that Amnon said, but also my father played the piano. I don't know if any of you heard, there's quite a bit of it online now. But our house was a house where my father would kind of play the piano every day. In my wedding he played, and some people asked me where did I get him from. I said that he got me. My grandfather, my mother's father, was going to be the cantor in the Tel Aviv synagogue. And I've been working with my mom on a podcast for the Daily, just trying to tell her life. And she was telling that story, so it's fresh in my mind. He was asked to be the cantor. He was in a choir of the Gur yeshiva in Poland and then in Israel. And eventually he refused because he wanted to be a chalutz. He wanted to build a country. He would still sing sometimes. After the Holocaust, he took off his clothes and said that he did not want to wear these because these were costumes, and that's the way he was affected for the Holocaust. My mom grew up with him, you know, with my grandparents crying some nights, and she would hear them as a child, and they will cry for their family that was gone. And I think my connection to Germany was the connection of the kind of third generation. I came to London, I met many good friends from Germany, and there was a real curiosity towards one another. And I think that was the reason that I then came to Germany, traveled by train, made people. And I think that the lesson about empathy and compassion and trying to understand people and trying to understand the history of the people, also the people that have been part of the country or the regime that caused so much. This training has stood me in good faith in the last 7 months. And if there's something that I will say to take from today is that when you're really at the edge of something, when your whole life is turned upside down, you make choices, you make pacts with whatever gods you believe in. And I think that the pact I made is that I don't want to go to revenge and I don't want to go to hate, because there is a lot of work to do in this world. And it's one luxury I'm not going to afford myself. I think that my father and mother have been good tutors to that. And I think I'm standing here today not for anything I have done in my life, and in a funny way, not for anything my father and mother has done in their life, but for what was done to them. And I'm going to start, as I started this afternoon, by simply telling the names of all the people from my kibbutz. As Amnon said, for my kibbutz there were about 70 hostages. We are a very small community, full of people that really do not seek the limelight. They wouldn't move to a small kibbutz in the corner next to Gaza if they were. And our life have turned upside down. I think that in a world so full of disinformation, I choose to talk about my kibbutz in part because I know these people. I know them well. I know that I cannot find them anywhere I look, and I've been really looking together with the rest of us. So we have 27 hostages that we don't know are dead. Some of them we have some indication from the last months, and some of them we don't. We have 2 piles, we have 4 piles. We have the hostages that were returned, and this is number 40, including, my maths teacher and the children of my friends, etc., etc. We have 40 that was murdered on the 7th of October, including my best friend's daughter and mother, and many people that I've known my whole life. We have 10 that were murdered on 7th of October or since the 7th of October in Gaza and are held by Hamas. Their body is held by Hamas. And then there are 27 people that are still there. I am here because when I get up every morning, I think that they are getting up there. I hope they do. And because my deal is with them, that when they come back, I can tell them I tried to do something. I don't know if I've done my best. I don't know if any of us. But so many of us are running like crazy because they are there and they are alive. They didn't want the war. The destruction of Gaza is on top of their heads. It doesn't really, it isn't in the same box, I say to everybody that talk to me about what about Gaza, I say, we can feel sad for that too. It's not instead. But today, I'm grateful for you to coming here, and I'm going to try to do my best by these people. Live hostages from Kibbutz Nir Oz. My father, Yochevet Lifshitz, 83, soon 84. Itzik Elgarat, 69, also my father. Ariel Bibas, 4-year-old. My mom called him the little ginger boy, also my son. Yarden Bibas, 34, his father, also my brother. Kfir Bibas, the other little ginger boy, a year now, also my son. Shiri Bibas, their mother, and the mother of Margit and Yossi, that I loved Margit very much. Margit and Yossi were murdered on that day. Alex Danzig, my history teacher, that once gave us a whole lectures about nuns in the Middle Ages and really taught us how big the world is. We were a bunch of kids in the desert, and he made us feel, he was one of the people that made us feel that the world is big and that we should learn about it. Sagid Dekelchen, his mother was my boss for a while when I was working in the kibbutz. He's 35, he's got 3 kids, also my son. Eitan Horn, 37, also my brother. Yair Horn, also my brother. Sirion Vat Chudra, he's one of the quite a few Thai people. There was a group of them that were put into one room and massacred on that day. A few of them are still in Gaza. We don't even know if he's dead or alive, but they were part of our community. Alexander Trupanov, the wonderful Sasha, who is 27, also my son. Arbel Yaoud, whose grandmother is my mom's best friend, whose aunt is my best friend, also my daughter. Dolev Yaoud, 35, he's the brother of Arbel, and he is the best friend of my nephew, also my son. Oadia Alomi, 49, living in my father and mother old house, also my brother. Yair Yaakov, 59, his 2 sons were also taken hostage and luckily returned. His girlfriend returned. We now know actually that he was murdered on that day. We also know the very horrific way he was murdered. Gadi Moses, 79, also my father. I knew him all my life as I did Avraham Munder, who was 78. He was in the same room with my mom when they were in Gaza. Yoram Metzger, 80, also my father. Sunkam Stian, 34, also my brother, also from the Thai people that work in the kibbutz, as did Natpong Pinta. Chaim Peri, also my father, a great artist and filmmaker, and all around a person that make you feel it's worth getting up in the morning and putting a sculpture on top of a tree or painting a picture of doing something with your life. Matan Zankauer, 23, also my son. Ariel Conyo, 26, Sylvia's son. I love Sylvia. She has 2 sons. She had several grandchildren there. They came back, luckily, together with Sharon, who is David Conyo, his brother's wife. Amiram Cooper, 84, we had a long chat this summer about all sorts of things we always did. Ofer Calderon, 53, my parents' neighbor. And Elad Katzir, whose mother, Hannah Katzir, was in the same room with my father in Gaza. They used to be our neighbors when I was a child. We have so many ways in which our life come together. On the morning of the 7th of October, I was on my way to pick up a little puppy for my son when I saw that something flared up. I called my mom and she didn't answer, so I called my dad and he didn't answer. So I called my brother, and there was something about this voice that I knew that nothing will ever quite be the same again. And this is a kind of something we do all the time. My parents live on the border, and so there's flare-ups very regularly. I once called my mom and said, "Why didn't you tell me that this missile landed 30 meters from the house and broke all the windows? Why did my sister-in-law have to tell me?" And her answer, which reveals quite a lot, was, "I'm so sorry, Sharone, I had a meeting. I was really late for it. Your father was really busy. He also had to travel somewhere and we forgot." And that just showed that the level of tolerance of my parents and their friends that live in the kibbutz is pretty high. They went on with their life. But on the morning of the 7th, it changed. About 2 hours later, we were on the way back, and needless to say, we didn't pick the puppy that day. And on the way back, I saw the Al Jazeera video in which there's an Al Jazeera journalist, if you can call him that, standing just behind my parents' house. It's totally recognizable to me. And in the background, there are people on motorcycles with guns shooting and all other noises. And he's basically saying that they occupied the kibbutz, and that is a very important Zionist post. The rest of the day is a little bit in a blur of just asking people what's happening and trying to figure out. A few days ago, I tried to go through it, and I found this little recording my sister-in-law sound where they say that they're gonna go and find my parents, that they're gonna look for them, they haven't found them. That was the people that were there. On that day, whole families were murdered. I have to say that I call it the betrayal of reality, because the basis of our reality is gone on that day. We have whole families that were murdered. I kind of think of the time I spent in the summer in the kibbutz as a farewell kind of tour. I spoke to loads of people I knew all my life, and I spoke to Tamar Simantov, and she was murdered with her husband and 3 children. And on that day, my father was introducing Tamari to me because she was trying to get elected in the local regional elections. She was an artist like me. My father was supporting her because he loves to support the underdog, and he loves women taking, over the world. And he really, after that, wrote these 2 pages of kind of support for her. It was the first time I actually met her because I haven't lived in the kibbutz. Her 3 children were swimming in the swimming pool together with my son and 2 other grandchildren of my father. On that day, they were murdered. So many other people survived. But people really hide like it was a pogrom. It was a pogrom. For my kibbutz, who is at the epicenter of it, it was a total pogrom. Nobody came to help them. There were 6 members of the kind of unit that protect the kibbutz, and they were all pretty instantly injured or dead or incapacitated. My parents live in the house more or less closest to the Gaza Strip. They came home pretty late the night before, and after in the morning at 6:30, the shelling began at 6:29. They were in the safe room, that is their bedroom. They were still in their pajamas. My father spoke to my brother, he spoke to my uncle, he spoke to another friend of his. He was saying that he's not worried because my father never worried about these things very much. And in a sense, my parents would always go. As soon as there was a flare-up and everything, and it started rain missiles, my parents would come back home. It was their home. They didn't want another home. They didn't want to be safer than they are at home. They were safe at home. My father still said that he could hear Arabic outside, and my father speaks good Arabic. As soon after, around 7:30, the door, my father was holding the door to the safe room. He was shot through the door. 6 Hamas people entered the room. They hit my father. My mom was taken out of bed, literally pulled out the oxygen mask. My mom is 85. They're both at the age where their children go, should they still be driving? Are they safe? Do I need to start thinking about changes to their life? Well, my mom was taken out, but she was taken by an older gentleman terrorist who protected her. He wrapped a blanket around her. She came out, they pulled her out and put her on a motorbike, and she could see my father lying unconscious on the floor on the road next to my parents' home. When I saw her when she came back, one of the first things that she said to me was that, Sharon, Dad is dead. He's not coming back. I've seen him. And so from day 17 when my mom came and until day 49 when the other hostages came, we thought he was dead. My mom was taken across the fields like a carpet. There were 2 Hamas people behind and in front, and they were literally protecting her from a huge mob of people running towards her and towards them and trying to hit her. They were running with sticks and with knives, and they were shouting, Itbach el Yahud, which is kill the Jews, and Allahu Akbar. These 2 people protected her. She did get beaten. She was also lying like that on the motorcycle, which I can never understand how she survived. It's quite incredible what your body does when you are put in such stress. And they were taken into Gaza and very quickly into a car, and from there into the tunnels. When the people came back, they told us that my father did survive. 2 members of the kibbutz saw him. He was in the hospital, El Nassar Hospital, on the day in Khan Yunis, where he was, 1 member of the kibbutz saw him. And one of the things that make me feel they haven't changed much, my parents, with the ordeal, is that my father didn't lose in any way his wits. When he Ada Sagi, who is another hostage that came back since, he said to them, well, this is Ada Sagi, her Arabic is even better than mine, so she's going to write to you the name of my mom, so you can go around the hospital and look for her. And that's what she did. So my father the last thing we know he did on that day was looking for my mom after 63 years of marriage. And we know afterwards that he was in the same room with another member of the kibbutz. We know he wasn't very well. We know he was in a lot of pain. He was injured in his legs and in his hands. The woman he was with was herself not very well. She has been in hospital since she came back, and it's literally she was saved on the last day. If she stayed in Gaza for another day or 2, she wouldn't have made it. The average for people above a certain age of survival in the Holocaust is about 3 to 4 months, and we are at about almost 6. And so the chances for the elderly members, the elderly people to come are diminished. But I feel that until they're back, we have to every day do everything we can. They're there. I can feel them in my bones. I can feel them in my skin. I can feel them in my food. I can feel them in everything. And there is women there. There's young women there. Yesterday, one of the returned hostages came out and spoke about a rape that she experienced while she was a hostage. We are entering the second trimester for the women that were raped on the 7th of, the third trimester for women that were raped on the 7th of October. This is horrific. This is horrific on any level. And this is just, in many ways, we are still on the 7th of October. That's what I would say. We are demanding of the world to remember that these people are there, that until they come back, we cannot continue. But let me tell you that in my kibbutz, which really, it's really suffered the worst in terms of the fact that it's 1 in 4 members that were taken hostage or murdered. Other kibbutzes is 1 in 10. I don't like to compare misery, and I've since met many people. I know some people that were taken hostage from other people. They were with me in school. We are really small communities. But Nir Oz is really at a point where I sometimes don't know if we will manage to resurrect it. Oh, not all the houses were damaged, but the vast majority. And people are very, very badly traumatized. When I go with my mom, they stayed in a hotel in Eilat for 3 months, and then they moved to a new housing place, more in the center of the country, and they're there, and my mom, joins them with other people. She lives in a kind of elderly people home, or kind of a village with other elderly members from the kibbutz, with some of them. And when we go, it's almost like you have to remember which one had which one dead, which one was killed. It's not simple to remember that his grandson was murdered, and his grandson was also the nephew of this child that was killed, and it's you have to kind of make this mental arithmetic continually. The devastation is so large that it's hardly any family that survived without it. And so it's hard to explain a kibbutz when you don't know it. But we have 3-4 generations now of people that are so intertwined into one another that we have, this one is the son of this, but is married to this. They have grandchildren together. They work there together. They did that together. They came from the same town when they come to the kibbutz, like my father and other members. So I think we are in a place where we are sometime having a glimpse of what we have lost. And really we have a lot to think about, but until the hostages, 134 hostages come back, none of it can take place. I think maybe that's good and then we can do questions. Is that good?
The first question of the audience.
I would like to just say about it. My 2 weeks before October 7th was the last time my father drove as part of Road to Recovery Palestinians from Gaza Strip to hospitals in Israel and East Jerusalem. Many of the people that were taken hostages are people that fought quite hard for a vision of two people living side by side. I grew up in the peace camp. My father is, a week before he was still demonstrating against the current government. Israel, like Germany, is going through quite a turmoil situation with regards to different forces growing. It's a complicated time, and I think that's why I started by saying that we all have a job to do now in terms of supporting, as this lady suggested, organization on the ground that bringing people together in any way, in any capacity. What really upset me is when I am kind of being put in a box and told that I've never felt more Jewish or more Israeli on the one side, but I am a human being who lived in this world for 52 years. I don't believe that that Israel should belong only to Jewish people. I don't believe that Palestinians shouldn't be able to live in peace in their country. I do believe that the people of Palestine and Israel deserve honest politicians that really tell them the truth about what is possible and how do we get from here to a long-term agreement and the possibility of people to live in peace. It breaks my heart what is happening to the children of Gaza, and I say that as a person whose mom was, seeing hundreds of civilians running towards my kibbutz, and I tell you, these civilians, they murdered with tools from gardening tools, and they stepped over bodies in order to take perfumes and things that are worth money, and they indulged in the most horrific acts, and they took children as hostages, and they sold body parts in Gaza Strip. And I'm telling you, it doesn't help that I just say that if I don't also tell you that I expect of myself to still feel, how do we go from here to giving these people and these children an alternative? And the only way to really defeat Hamas and religious fanaticism wherever it raises its ugly head, the only way is by truly thinking that there is more than one people, that all people deserve, and we can defeat Hamas if we do not, if we look at it as an ideology and we offer a different pathway to a future. Hamas started this on the 7th of October, hoping for a regional war, hoping that the Palestinians that live in Israel will join it. They did not. On that day, they killed over 30 Muslim people. We have seen Muslim people, Bedouin people, going back and forth to the area and saving Jewish people's life. In that party, there were people of all religion that were murdered, of many nationalities. I refuse to see a vision in which just we kind of keep on fighting. And I think that my father spent his whole life investing in the idea that we can live in peace with our neighbors. Peace is a big and loaded word. But how do we get from here to 3 generations from now that we do have peace, that we can talk to each other? And when my mom, and I will say it again, my mom says it to me regularly when I say, but do you still believe all that? And she says, yes, Sharone, we made peace with the Germans. Yeah? And it's one of the reasons that I felt it's important to me as somebody who has worked in Germany and really thought deeply about the people that lived in Germany after the generation of the Second World War, that have grown with that history and memory. And my mom's word as an 85-year-old woman, that instead of being with her family, were taken on a motorbike into Gaza and lived in that 40 meters under the ground, and came back and had the audacity to shake her hand, and she had the audacity to stand up and say her truth. You know, I think we all must really think what we are doing now. And I'm seeing so much hatred directed towards us, directed towards people, and I really feel it is indulgent, it is self-gratifying, and it does not make the world a better place.
Sharone, I have just two short questions. Number one, do you have do you know how long it took the army or the police to arrive at the kibbutz after the assault started? Number one. Number two, isn't it true that the Israeli government, like you said, did give money to Hamas, you know, for a period of time, hoping that this could be a way to find, you know, calm them down and to go forward in peace?
First question, 8 hours. 8 hours. This was a pogrom. This was not possible. Much would be said about it, and I hope many heads will roll. I think that it's very... Adina Moshe, one of the hostages, she's a really lovely woman. On that day, she was taken hostage. The last thing she saw is her husband sending her a kiss before they shot him. They were together for 50-something years. He was lying on the ground injured, and she looked at him, and he sent her a kiss, and they shot him. Very shortly afterwards, she was helping my mom. They were both barefoot, walking in the tunnels, and she was holding my mom's hand. My mom really struggled, and Adina carried her all the way there. Adina, as you know, I saw her a few times since. She has not recovered. She was together with a group of kibbutz members that were taken hostage, and underneath, you know, it was really, women were really, really looking after the men, funny enough. You know, my mom was hugging one of the hostages, a man who is just a wonderful man, and they were in the same room, and he was really badly injured because the motorcycle he was taken in fell, and he fell with it, so he had really bad injuries. You know, while you are there, you're still alive. You don't freeze. Life goes on. You have to deal with what is there. I think our brain goes to fight or flight, but after 173 days, even that is not possible. I know that Alex Danzig was giving them lectures at one point, history lectures. But Adina Moshe, really, when she came out, the first thing she did was look at the soldiers that were picking her up, and she said, "Where have you been?" And they said, "A mistake." And she said, "A big mistake." For my kibbutz, it kind of was really at the center of it. So forces came from other places but got stuck, and so they never reached it. The people that came there did whatever they want and then left. Nobody came. By the time they came, there was hardly anybody left there. That was the first question. What was the second one?
The second question is, they say that the Israeli government did at some point give money to Hamas in order to quiet them down and to find some kind of an agreement with them You know, that's what they say. I don't know if it's true.
It is true. I think that I'm going to recall something my father wrote in the Haaretz newspaper in 2019. He wrote a few things about it. It was after another set of war, and he said, when the Palestinians have nothing to lose, we lose big time. The idea that you can manage the conflict, that idea, which was always ludicrous and that people like my father and mother fought against, that idea that somehow you can have it there and bubble along, Netanyahu has sold it to the people of Israel for a long time, and that has backfired as bad as it can be. That is facts, you know. Netanyahu thought that he can manage it, and if you look at interviews of Hamas leaders, since they explained 7th of October for two reasons, and one of them is that Israel was about to reach agreement with Saudi Arabia, and a regional agreement, and that would have meant that there were facts of the ground that they could not. So the idea that we can reach agreement with Syria, with Saudi Arabia, and ignore the situation in Israel, I think that has proven not to work. And I think that we have the possibility of doing long-term agreement now, but we can't just ignore the Palestinians and some of the really horrible things that are happening in the occupied territories, etc., etc.
Shalom, Shmi Shmuel. My name is Samuel. I have one question. So it's very precious that you are here tonight. What can we do, Baaretz, in Israel right now to help you out? So is there any need of people coming and building up the kibbutzim, or how can we support you actively? Toda Rabba.
Well, there's all sorts of lists about which kibbutz need picking up what. So if you come to Israel, I'm sure they can find you some potatoes or peppers to pick. I think on another level, Israel would need a lot of help. I know from my community that the trauma is immense. We are very visible because the story of our families is still not resolved. But I have so many friends whose parents were murdered on that day, that one of them was murdered. I have people who, my mom's neighbor, she survived the Holocaust as a child, and on the 7th of October, she was saved by her two grandchildren that took her and her husband, who has Alzheimer, out of the window, and they hid, like in a bush for 3 hours. And these stories, we don't even talk about it. The people that somehow survived, we don't even talk about them, but if you try to apply a perspective of the 6th of October, to what happened, my mom's best friend, whose two of her grandchildren are hostage, she hid under the bed for 8 hours. She simply was hiding. She's 85, alone in her house, hiding with these terrorists running around, shouting. It's just the stories that you hear are so crazy, but there's so many of them. And a lot of the work that I do when I'm home is just trying to prop people to really try to offer support, something really practical one, take somebody to a doctor or try to find a way to find a doctor, because people's well-being is really, yeah, we don't even know what will happen to the kibbutz. I think it will be rebuilt, and that will be a huge thing to do. And I hope you come and, you know, join it when it's ready.
If I just may add to that, when we have our drinks afterwards, you'll find pieces of paper lying out on the tables, the bistro tables out there. B'nai B'rith will be collecting donations if you want to donate for the mental welfare, well-being of the people from the kibbutz. There are also a number of other organizations that are willing to take in volunteers who want to go to Israel. My personal appeal would be for everyone here to take the messages of peace from tonight back to their friends and their communities, and that everyone here can literally be doing something, whether it's the media representatives who need to be spreading the story, whether it's the politicians who need to talk to their parliamentarian colleagues to bring the message of tonight, message of peace, message of what happened, the message of bringing every single one of the hostages home back to them. And also, last one that I'd mention is the family forum of the abducted. They are, of course, also looking for support, and among other things, we have the dog tags and some of the other stuff from the Bring Them Home Family Forum back there on the table in the corner, and you're willing to take with you the badges and whatever for a donation. There's a box there, you can just put the money in, and the money will end up going there.
Can I ask you a question? Where do you get your strength from? Where did you get your strength from?
I don't know. I fall apart, and then I kind of just, I think in the immediate, as I said, I really feel I have to speak for those who can't. Some of us cannot speak now. Some of the mothers who have children there, it's just really hard, you know. Some of the mother of the girls, you kind of find that there's such different people, and everybody, it affects them in different way. I'm sitting here for all that I've lost, but in the kind of hierarchy of hostage family, our situation is quite good, because we haven't yet had anyone dead, and the week before there was 22 members of my family in the kibbutz, my brothers, their children, their grandchildren, my aunt and a granddaughter, they were all there. And so even on the day we were kind of saying, thank God we weren't there, you know, thank God that when Mom and Dad were taken, at least they knew the rest of us wasn't there. But, you know, I'm in touch with people that lost so many, who has 2 children there, that have lost people that are dead already, that have 3 members of the family dead. The Sharabi family from Be'eri, you know, there's 2 brothers that are hostage. One of them died. The one who died, his family is alive. The one who is still alive in Gaza, Eli Sharabi, his wife and 2 daughters were murdered. So when they come back, they have been through this ordeal for 100 and God knows how many days. I hope it will be 100 and something and not 500 and something. But then we will have to look after them. We will have to also do a lot of work then. And I think I just feel that sometimes life is bigger than you know, and you use all the tools you have. Of course, they're always very little compared to it, but you just try to use it to affect the situation. I also am pretty sure that our actions, whatever it is, whatever little thing you do, can affect the situation.
Thank you so much.
Hello, thank you for coming. I have a question about emotions. They affect us not in a really voluntary way all the time. And so when you said you don't hate, I wonder how that works. Because if I were to say I'm not able to hate, that would be, maybe some people would think I'm lacking something. And so I was just thinking, what would somebody have to do to receive that kind of emotional response, let's say hate or rage? How do you deal with this? Is it really not there?
I don't know. I don't know. I know that for myself, I have a huge curiosity about people. That's why I think I made art in the way that I've done, because I always felt that I'm interested in other people. I'm interested in what people think and feel and how they describe things. So I do feel that I've prepared myself for a long time. And I just feel that it's kind of course you have this whole thing, and of course I shout at my child sometimes in not the nicest way. I'm kind of normal human being, but I think here there's something really big that is happening. There's a big change that is happening in the world. I feel that it's firmly post the post-war era now, and I think that there's a lot at stake, and it amazes me how many people that I know for a long time can just become very one-sided and one-dimension and hoping to really just say, you know, I remember in the mid-90s I was in New York, and I met these two kids from, I think they were from Serbia. They were in the university with me, and it was the Balkan War at the time. And I remember that they were kind of introduced to me, and they looked really nice, and then I thought really hard. I was like, okay, so the Serbians, are they the good guys or the bad guys? The good guys or the bad guys, you know? And that feeling that you just go, can I just put a label, who's the good and who's the bad? Because there's a big political thing I don't quite understand. I haven't put the effort into truly trying to understand, but let me just kind of put them in a box, and then I can forget about them. I always go back to that, because it's so easy to just say, you know, the Palestinians, are they the good guys or the bad guys? And then you look at the human being, and obviously some of them are really horrific, the way what they've done. They've dirtied their hands for good. You know, there's some people that, what they have done to my people on the 7th of October, you don't understand, you know. It's not, you don't understand. It's like, as somebody who has watched the video, as somebody who is not talking just Hamas video, but the videos my brother took on the 9th of October in the kibbutz, where I see things I cannot unsee. You know, I've seen these things for real, you know, and I don't understand how somebody can do that. I simply cannot understand. I find it unbelievable, you know, that they could have done that physically, what they have done. How can you do that, you know? And I think you have to decide what you're going to use your energy for. And
Before we end the evening today, by the way, we will be holding a moment of silence, a minute of silence for, of course, the Israeli victims, but not just the Israeli victims, but all the innocent victims of this war. And I think that was one of the things that in the preparations of this evening, we discussed amongst the organizers the fact that we feel empathy. And just like we would wish that when we see some of these pro-barbaric demonstrations, hateful anti-Semitic demonstrations across Germany and across the world, that we would wish that these people would also feel the empathy for Sharon's parents and the other victims. You know, we do have that empathy. We see the destruction. We see that there have been innocent people killed in this war. And we can commemorate and think about those, and we can hope for an end to this war, a speedy end to this war. But in all of this, what of course differentiates us a little bit is the fact that we know who started this war, we know what happened, and we also know that this war could be ended immediately if Hamas released the hostages and put down their weapons.
Yes, hi Sharon. To be honest, it's very sad to meet you on this occasion tonight, but listening to you, it's a real inspiration. And I have a very simple, but maybe also a very hard question. Thinking about October 7th, 2024, which means 1 year later, what would be your personal vision of that day?
Biden leading in the polls, my father watching the TV. I think it's a good question. I don't know. I think the next hour I'm gonna, you know, I haven't checked my WhatsApp for an hour. Did anything change? Did we get any closer to the deal? I'm really not thinking that far. I know what is ahead. I think that what happened since the 7th of October that is really shocking is this feeling that we have been split up. As somebody who is an academic in London, who is a filmmaker who makes pretty obscure film for the most part, I'm very much part of, of people that are on the left. And I think that it's really shocked me how much there's this wish to divide. How much there is this wish not to kind of engage with the pain of others. People that on the 7th of October, on the 8th, on the 9th will write to me in private, but then already will go online and will put very pro-Palestinian. And I think that what is pro-Palestinian? I am pro-Palestinian, yeah, but I'm not pro-Hamas. And what amazes me is how often people forget that, nobody expected of the people of Romania to talk badly about Ceausescu. Nobody expected of the people of Iraq to talk badly about Saddam Hussein, because it was clear that they will be kind of beheaded at the earliest possibility. Yeah? The people of Gaza are in the same position. They are under a very, very horrible totalitarian regime. My father knew many people in PLO, and he knew people that had to escape for their life when Hamas took over and threw over PLO politicians off the roofs after shooting them in the knees. We know who Hamas is. You know, we have seen Boko Haram, we have seen ISIS. To see my people I know for many years going on the street and kind of not differentiating between the people of Palestine and those Hamas terrorists is kind of sad. It's sad for Europe. It's sad for liberal values. It's sad for what we uphold as I don't know. I mean, I still consider myself part of Europe, so I'm going to speak as part of Europe. But, you know, it's really shocking to see how many people are ready to excuse that and how many people have held in high esteem. I kind of had to reconcile the fact that they have been able to forgive Hamas as part of a resistance, but not able to forgive my father as a person who always worked for peace.
This is the point. We are standing for the people of Israel, and we are not standing for a government, no matter which government is in power. We are standing here to support the people of Israel, and they are not only Jewish people. They are Muslims, they are Christians, they are Hindus, I don't know. We have a Baha'i temple in Haifa. So this is what it is all about, to support the people of Israel. And this is Daniela, she's always also on our side. Whenever we have something we can turn to her, she is always listening, and is not self-understanding that this is done. And for that, we want to thank you all, really in the name of the Lodge, in the name of Honestly Concerned, also for the Jewish community. We are all hosting this evening here today. We were the organizations calling for that evening, but without you, it would not have been possible. Thank you.
So thank you, Simona. You know how I'm really bad on those things, but thank you very much. And I really want to say thank you to you, Sharone, for sharing your story and for sharing not your hope. I think that's the most important thing. You shared not only your story, you shared your hope for peace, for living together, Palestine and Israeli people, and that's something we need all so much in these times. Thank you very much.
Meine Damen und Herren, wenn Sie sich jetzt noch einmal für die erwähnte, machen wir erst die Schweigenden und dann noch Vino. Wenn wir die nächste Minute dafür nutzen könnten, allen Opfern dieses Krieges zu gedenken, und danach hören wir nochmal Avinu Shebashamayim. Danke. May they all be home soon, and may everybody who passed away, who was murdered, find peace. Thank you.
Avinu
weiß, es ist an. Ich wollte mich jetzt auch nur noch mal bei den Musikern hier bedanken. Am Klavier Anna Kupperschmidt. An der Geige Hagit Halaf. Und der wunderbare Gesang ist der Kantor meiner alten Heimatgemeinde Mannheim, Amnon Selig. Und I live in Frankfurt much longer than I've lived in Mannheim, but Mannheim is the city of my childhood, my youth, and so I still have a good connection, and sometimes during the holidays I go to the synagogue in Mannheim, and I love his voice. I love the way actually the whole service in Mannheim is conducted, and it's just wonderful to listen to you. Thank you.
And thank you, all the people in the audience. Thank you so much for coming today, for listening, and for your empathy for all of the people who are now starving in Gaza and in Israel. And thank you so much.
Bitte erheben Sie sich für die Hatikva. Hatikva heißt Hoffnung, and it is the national anthem of the state of Israel. Hatikva, hope. Draußen haben Sie jetzt noch die Möglichkeit, ein Glas Wein zu trinken. Outside you have the possibility of having a glass of water or wine, some salty snacks to exchange, to talk a little bit. As we can imagine, this is necessary after such an evening. Thank you all for coming.